The Dave Hooker Show. A presentation of Off the Hook Sports. Objective insight, expertise, top guests. Available on YouTube, Apple, Spotify, and the Off the Hook Sports app. Download now for free. Also available on offthehooksports.com.
I compute and obey.
Now to Dave Hooker.
Ready.
All right, here we go before Austin Peay and news from Tennessee's camp, and it's not the greatest as the Vols suffer an injury to another significant player, and this one may even hamper the Vols a little bit more than Cooper Mays, the original injury that we talked about in preseason camp. So we'll talk about Keenan Pili. I'll give you the latest on what I'm hearing about his potential return. Also on the program today, Josh Ward will join us from the Sports Animal. He does so every Thursday, and we absolutely love that. 5 goals for the Vols to focus on versus Austin Peay, because let's face it, the final score is not the end-all, be-all. Butch Jones takes a not-so-subtle shot at Tennessee, and Brian Kelly caught in a lie. Do we really care if coaches lie as long as they win? Also, we'll have our Week 2 SEC picks, so we're off and rolling. Caleb Calhoun, how are you, sir?
I am good. It is my wife's birthday, so I have a lot of pressure on me today.
I do. A lovely lady that at SEC Media Days I saw for like 38 seconds as we were so busy and moving around. So please tell her I said happy 24th birthday, because that's where I've got her pegged age-wise.
Oh, well, that's very nice. Not even close, but she'll be flattered.
Don't say it. Don't get yourself in trouble. All right, we've got a lot going on in the program today. Unfortunately, we'll have to lead it off with some injury news. I'm sure you've heard by now, Keenan Pili is out for what's been called several weeks. I don't know what that means as far as the number of weeks, but I can tell you right now, just to use that terminology, I think is probably very troubling for the Pili family. What does that mean for the Vols? How big of a loss is that? We get to that right now. It is today's tough question.
Today's tough question. Take a side. Take a stand. The Dave Hooker Show, a presentation of offthehooksports.com.
Let's start with what you thought about Keenan Pili, who got a game ball against Virginia. What did you think about his play on Saturday before we dive into the injury? Caleb, I thought he played really solid. I thought he's a middle linebacker type who's probably not going to ring up big stats, but I think he's responsible for the defensive front and that they get in the right calls, and they look fantastic. So I would have to give him an A+, even though the stat line was not enormous. I think he had 4 or 5 tackles.
Yeah, I'm with you. It's pretty high for me too. It's an A+ range. The thing that stood out to me is, and you may have known this, and I didn't really realize this about football until a couple of years ago, but being good in coverage as a linebacker is not so much about speed as it is just kind of understanding positions and understanding where, your footwork and how you need to get where you need to go. Because Jeremy Banks is faster than Keenan Pili, but it seems like Keenan Pili is significantly better in pass coverage than Jeremy Banks was. And
agree.
Yeah, and so I think that Keenan Pili really showed that he has the fit of, okay, putting aside what we thought about what the scandal. Remember Penn State linebacker U always had kind of slower linebackers that were always in position, though, all the time during the Joe Paterno days. And
right.
Keenan Pili seems to have that type of profile as a player. And it's perfect for Tennessee because then it allows Aaron Beasley to do what he is best at naturally as the weak side linebacker. So, yeah, I'm with you. I give him an A+ on that.
Yeah, and when it says that the timeline, I know that Josh Heupel has said over the next couple of weeks they'll take a look at him and anticipate as we go over the next couple of weeks, we'll kind of figure out what the timeline is for him. He said that on ball calls, and they again quote, hopefully we're able to get him back here in the middle part of the season. he's someone that you just hate it for him. So, I mean, that's first and foremost. And I say that because here's the young man who went on his Mormon mission. He enrolled, he was born in 98. So the guy is 25 years old, and he went on his Mormon mission. He played his best for BYU, brought them an awful lot of good football, and then makes the move. So he's not going to get another year. This is year 6. So first, I feel bad for the young man. But as far as when he might be back, on our message board, Travis says maybe the Alabama game. Well, first of all, Josh Heupel plays things close to the vest, and we'll have more insight as more people talk, and we'll have more as we go along. But the Alabama game, would that be an optimistic or realistic goal to have Pili back? I think it's probably a little bit optimistic, but I will call it realistic as well, if that makes sense. We'll just have to see what all they find. And again, it's not a situation where he's going to release a lot of injury information. Nobody does at this point. I can tell you that I'll have some more on that as in the coming days, but right now we know it's a significant amount of time. Expected to miss a couple of weeks, but that's what they said about Cooper Mays too.
Yeah, and look, the thing is, from a positive perspective, I'm with you. I feel awful for him, but say he gets back in late October, that's plenty of time to have an impact on the team throughout the year. Dave, you covered the 2001 team. I don't know if any players ever had an impact coming back from an injury the second half of the season like Dante Stallworth did in 2001. I mean, Kelly Washington had taken all the hype and the stardom, and then Stallworth comes back, and by the end of the year, we thought Stallworth was better than Washington, honestly.
True. And at the time, Kelly tricked Dante and into going pro early, but that's a whole nother story. Here's why Tennessee can accept this blow, and I didn't think that they could handle Cooper Mays' loss as well as they did. Now, again, everything has to be taken with the backdrop that this is Virginia last week. So everything we saw, we have to keep that in mind, okay? We can't just forget that. That's one of the worst Power 5 teams in the nation. But Tennessee has built some depth. So you have a Caleb Herring that's there. You have an Arian Carter that's there. You have Aaron Beasley. So where this hurts you immediately is that I would think they would slide Beasley back to the middle where he played last year, and then it would be Carter or Herring on the outside. So that hurts you right now because Beasley's natural position is to play outside. But it does speak to the fact that Tennessee now has depth at that position where at least it's not like they're running a guy out there that physically just can't handle SEC play. I think you would agree Herring and Arian Carter look like SEC players, the latter of which looks like a special SEC player to me.
Yeah, are you sure Arian Carter can't play inside linebacker? I mean, he committed as one.
I'm not sure. No, I'll tell you what. Yeah, and I'm glad you pointed that out because I'll tell you when I know something, when I'm speculating. I'm speculating at this point. Maybe he could. Maybe he puts him in there. I don't think we'll know until the Vols take the field against Austin Peay because practice is closed. But very possible. Maybe you think long-term move that he could be a middle linebacker for you, not just the rest of this year, but into the future. And you kind of make that move to give him a look. That's a real possibility. You just don't have a lot of games before you got to get really serious. I mean, had this happened in the preseason, I think you think more long-term as far as getting Beasley more than Mike, if that's where you want him. But you got Austin Peay, and then things get serious with the trip to Florida. And I don't care how good you think Florida is. I mean, that's still a trip to Florida.
Yeah, and it's still Tennessee and the history of Tennessee playing Florida that is going to be sticking in everybody's mind. So the reason I asked that, do you think, Dave, in Tennessee's system, does size matter more when you're playing inside linebacker? Like, do you need to be close to Keenan Pili size, like the 240 range, or can you be in the 225, 230 range playing on the inside?
Depends how much you ask of them in pass coverage. I think you'd like that bigger guy in the 240 range, but I think you could take 225. But that's where they are. So they're going to be fast. I think this
because Elijah Herring is 238. So you could probably put Elijah Herring in at middle linebacker and have Aaron Beasley stay outside.
Yeah. And Dan points out of the message board the communication at the Swamp. I think that's the biggest concern to me. If I'm Tennessee fan right now, communication at the Swamp. This guy's been in charge of handling the line calls. I'm sure other people have done it to be ready in a situation like this, but I think that's your concern. And he's. I think it's incumbent upon the defensive tackles to play like they played against Virginia moving forward and be able to make a couple of plays at the line against the run game. But
look at 98 when Al Wilson made all the calls for the defense and he was the best player in the heart and soul and he had to miss Auburn and Georgia. The defensive line Sean Ellis basically stepped up and dominated those 2 weeks.
That's a fantastic point. Hadn't thought about that. You very well might read about that on offthehooksports.com. So how big of a loss is this for the Vols? I can't think of anybody. We had Mays as the player that Tennessee wanted to most wrap in bubble wrap and not get hurt. So sure enough, he gets hurt. Pili would be that second level of guys that if you would have asked me Sunday after I saw him one game because of what he brings. I mean, is there any player other than Joe Milton on this entire roster? I'm not being gloom and doom here. I think Tennessee's fine because Josh Heupel has recruited some depth at the linebacker position. But is there really any player that you could say, man, you'd hate to lose him way more than Keenan Pili? I mean, to me, there's a second level kind of there outside of the quarterback position that he's one of those you did not want to lose.
Yeah, there's a few of those. There's people on Keenan Pili's level. I think Javonte Spraggins is on Keenan Pili's level because that right guard is just, you can't just plug somebody in there. I think Amari Thomas, Big O at defensive tackle, is in that list because Amari Thomas is the one trustworthy defensive tackle that you can watch on this Tennessee team and say that guy is there. There's a reason Josh Heupel brought Amari Thomas to SEC Media Days, and we kind of saw that last week.
Nope. I completely agree. It is time for 4 Downs. 4 Downs today is brought to you by who? That would be Andy Mason, AndyMasonRealEstate.com.
4 Downs. 4 questions. 4 answers. The Dave Hooker Show.
4
Downs. A presentation of offthehooksports.com.
All right, what Vols are going to have fantastic seasons in the NFL, and who do you most want to root for? The season starts tonight on the Thursday night game, and I don't know about you, but I'm more than ready for it. Several Vols we want to talk about, but it is officially football time to me when the NFL kicks in as well. Of course, we do more college, but when it's all there, that's pretty exciting. So we get rolling tonight. So we'll get to several of those teams. But how you feeling? You excited? You ready? You good to go there, Caleb?
We all ready for Ryan Tannehill winning MVP this year, guys?
Ryan Tannehill. What about your guy from Kentucky?
We don't have to mention him, Dave. We don't really have to say anything.
I've got my coffee. I can put some mayo in it. How about that?
I have half. Okay, a part of me believes that the Titans, because just to stick it to all the Vol fans in Nashville, I feel like they stupidly drafted Will Levis. Looking back, I think they were annoyed at Vol fans being so anti-Will Levis. They wanted to make a point that we don't make decisions based on what the Vols want. I've seen pro teams do that to like slight the college team in the same market. So yeah.
And Tom telling me he doesn't watch the NFL anymore. I don't know anyone. I think a lot of people watch the NFL, but you should at least keep up with your former Vols. I would argue that. So let's get it going. Coop, what should people do? As 4 Downs is brought to you by AndyMasonRealEstate.com. AndyMasonRealEstate.com, over 4 decades combined experience in East Tennessee. Best prices, best service in the Knoxville area. Let's get it going. What should people do, Coop?
Cooper Mays here. Hit like and subscribe.
All right, hit like and subscribe now, and give me your thoughts on the following questions. We want you to be involved with the message board. You can also reach out to us via Twitter as we're live 10 a.m. each and every weekday. Here we go.
Coop here. First down.
All right, so first down right off the top. Who do you think's the fan favorite right now among active players in the NFL? Former Vols, and let me get your thoughts on the message board. Who is the fan fave right now? I'm going to go first. I think it's Joshua Dobbs, and I think it's clear cut.
Okay, I can get with Dobbs. I think both quarterbacks in the NFL, Dobbs and Hendon Hooker, are fan favorites. But I think the actual fan favorite, is the Super Bowl champion Trey Smith. Best story in Tennessee. And I love Trey Smith, the person. I was mad when my Titans didn't draft him, and that's not just because I cover the Vols. I'm not one of those guys like, oh my God, you should draft a player from the team that I cover or the team that I root for. You know how, Dave, fans do
Only
that, right?
16 minutes deep, Peyton Manning deep, and we've got British voice.
That's not a British voice. That's a dumb fan voice.
Okay.
Being from Memphis, Grizzly fans in the NBA, they want to draft former Memphis Tigers all the time. And I'm like, guys, that's a terrible idea. I feel like a lot of Titans fans are that way too. They're like, we should draft this Vol or this. Like, they would just have an all Vol team in the NFL. In all
fairness, I thought the Titans did that for marketing with guys like Joey Kent. But anyway, so you think Trey Smith is a fan fave? Okay, I can roll with that. It's probably Hendon Hooker now that you said it, but goodness gracious, Joshua Dobbs put up with a lot of trash, and you pointed out before that Tennessee's not even relevant if he doesn't play at such a high level. And man, everybody is saying Trey on the message board. We got a Dobbs in there as well. What down now, Coop?
Cooper Mays here. Second down.
Okay. Best Vol in the NFL. That was Trey Smith for me. I don't know that there's any other direction to go. The best Tennessee player playing right now in the NFL is Trey Smith, right? If you could take one guy and put him on your favorite NFL team, it's Trey, right?
Well, for disrespecting him, Alvin Kamara would like to take you into a Las Vegas elevator. Okay, sorry.
Okay,
I still think it's Alvin Kamara.
Yeah, I wonder also with running backs how long the shelf life is. And I don't think he helped himself with the off-field incident either in the elevator. We're gonna take the high floor, high road, and
what is it with running backs and elevators? Casino elevators. I'm sorry, but running backs.
Well, you're more comfortable running in space, so you feel very confined. What down is it, Coop?
Tennessee center Cooper Mays here. Third down.
Okay, compared to last year, so you can pick rookies in here because they would have an impact. Who will have the best season this year compared to last? I'm going to give you two. Dobbs, because I read an interesting thing about the Cardinals that if they play Kyler Murray and he gets hurt again, they're on the hook for like another $50 million. So the reason they went out and got Dobbs is because I think he's going to start the entire season. So I think he goes from a guy who started at the end of the season because the Titans had to have him to a guy who will start the entire season. That in and of itself is a major leap forward. The other one, though, is Jalen Hyatt. I've been following a lot of his coverage out of New York. Their quarterback, who's Daniel, help me.
Daniel Jones. He's a good quarterback.
Daniel Jones. For some reason, I have a mind block with his name. But Daniel Jones requested that he sit right next to him. And in the locker room, they have lockers next to each other. I think that 40 time at the combine was hampered by a hamstring. I think that Jalen Hyatt might be a really savvy pick. We are not going to talk fantasy football, but might be a savvy pick. I think he has a really big year. So those are my two. Who has the best season this year compared to last year for you?
Okay, so I'm going to go, because he had a season-ending injury and he's back this year, I'm going to go Emmanuel Mosley with the 49ers. He took Richard Sherman's starting job. That's one of the great stories. Another one of the players that was totally misused under Butch Jones that became a starter in the NFL. My other one is, I love your Jalen Hyatt pick, but just to be different, I'm going to go Darnell Wright. I'm so high on Darnell Wright. And regardless of how little I think of Justin Fields as a quarterback, and I think very little of Justin Fields as a quarterback, I think you still will notice Darnell Wright playing well up on the front.
Ooh, yeah. And if you get a guy that starts 17 games off the bat and it grades out fairly well, that's really, really good. So That's a very good pick. I like that. And lastly, I'm going to change it up. We had our 3:45 production meeting this AM, but we were going to go one direction. But I'm going to change it up a little bit. What down, Coop?
Cooper Mays here. Second down.
Hendon Hooker will. Oh, was that second?
All SEC center Cooper Mays here. Fourth down.
All right. It was a penalty. We got that down back. So Hendon Hooker has no impact, some impact, a big impact for the Detroit Lions this season.
I say no impact. I am very, very, very high on Hendon Hooker long term, but I think Hendon Hooker has got to spend a full year learning the offense. I mean, look, the fact is Josh Heupel's system doesn't fully prepare you for the NFL. So he's kind of in an Aaron Rodgers situation with Green Bay, whereas Jeff Tedford helped raise Aaron Rodgers' profile, but didn't develop him for the NFL. So he had to sit for a year and actually learn how to play quarterback at the NFL level. I think the same thing is going to have to happen with Hendon Hooker. So I'm going to say no impact this year, but starting next year.
I'm going to say he has an impact. You know, I hated that pick for Hendon when it happened, but I have looked into the Lions more. You said at the time they're better than you think. They're not the old Lions. I was like, Caleb, whatever. And, pardon me, but I'm on board now. And I think Jared Goff, being a guy who's watched football for 25 years or more, 40 years, whatever, I think that he is I think Jared Goff's terrible. I mean, I really do. And I think Hendon Hooker is a part of their future, and he could be a factor this year. I really do. So
I think if Jared Goff is terrible, though, they're just going to choose to be awful this year and get another high draft pick and have Hendon Hooker ready to go next year.
Yeah, that's fair. All right, so here we go. We're going to add, if Elias said it, we need a fifth down. We do. So
Colorado fifth down.
Yeah, what do you expect out of Dobbs?
But we need to get, because for those who don't know, yes, Josh Dobbs was named the starter for Arizona's Week 1. Got to give, and I just first off want to say a massive congratulations to him. He's deserved, a guy who's been a long-term backup, but has always been a hard worker and has always been just really a guy you want on your team. Am I right, Dave? And I thought got an unfair shake, similar to Casey Clausen in the early 2000s, got a bit of an unfair shake with Tennessee in the mid-2010s, and I think his stock has risen since we've seen how bad his coaching was. All that being said, I don't expect a playoff appearance or that much success from Josh Dobbs starting this year. I think he maintains his starting job throughout the year, though. I'm with you on that. But much as I love Josh Dobbs, he just doesn't have a good arm. He's got a very weak arm, honestly.
Yeah, there's some truth to that. I think he's a classic guy who's absolutely maximized his ability, and that's very respectable. But respectable doesn't mean you necessarily get into the NFL and win Super Bowls. Ability is a big part of it. In exactly 2 minutes, we will visit with Josh Ward. The keys to Tennessee having a successful day against Austin Peay aren't just winning on the scoreboard. They can work on themselves in a game like this. What are those goals that the Vols hope to accomplish? Josh Ward of the Sports Animal will join us in 2 minutes. Hang tight, he's Caleb Calhoun and Dave Hooker.
Our family has been creating one-of-a-kind pieces of jewelry in West Knoxville since 1986. Each piece is a combination of unique processes that bring your idea to life. Every day in our shop, a truly special item with a story all its own is being manufactured in our facility, bringing the history and family sentiment into a whole new generation of life. We're grateful that you chose us to be Knoxville's best jeweler, a title that we value and respect. Because to me, being a jeweler and owning a jewelry store are not the same thing. I'm Rick Terry. I'm a jeweler, and we want to be your jeweler. Kingston Pike and Campbell Station Road in the heart of Farragut, and downtown on Gay Street right next to the Tennessee Theater.
Hi, Mike Davis here with City Heating and Air, reminding you to always dare to compare. Our team provides quality local heating and air service, installation, and maintenance across East Tennessee. We use only the best equipment like American Standard heating and air conditioning for your residential, new construction, or commercial needs. Honesty, dependability, and customer satisfaction have been the cornerstones of our business since 1961. City Heat and Air.
There's repair.
These mountains hold and defend a spirit far better than moonshine. A drink that holds flavor that becomes necessity. A hard cider made and relished by folk who are as hearty as they are legend. A refreshment that can only be found in one place. With a taste that makes you say, give me 3 bottles of the good stuff. Tennessee Cider Company, where necessity can be found.
Objective coverage. Hey, that's new.
If we get caught, we're going to jail.
The Dave Hooker Show, a presentation of Off the Hook Sports. YouTube, Apple, Spotify, and the free Off the Hook Sports app.
I'm going to need to see some identification.
Back to Dave Hooker.
Welcome back, joined by a very special guest each and every Thursday. It is Josh Ward of the Sports Animal. You can listen to him noon to 3. He's fantastic. Josh, how are you, sir?
Good, guys. Good to be back with you.
The Keenan Pili, before we get to a couple of things we want to talk to you about, the Keenan Pili hit is certainly a blow for the Vols. And I certainly feel bad for him. He doesn't have a lot of eligibility left. Are you hearing anything of a possible return date? I have not to this point.
Nothing soon. So I think Tennessee is planning to be without him for several weeks. The fact that Josh Heupel had to address the idea that he could be out for the season tells us that it's probably going to be a while. So I think right now Tennessee is preparing for Elijah Herring and the other young linebackers to be ready to play for a while alongside Aaron Beasley.
How much bigger of a mess would Tennessee have been in 2 years ago if they didn't have a young Arian Carter, if they didn't have a young Elijah Herring?
They would have been in huge trouble. They were fortunate last year, besides some off-field issues, to not really have that depth challenged by injury. This year, we talked so much about the depth, and immediately it's going to be challenged. So we will find out more about these young players that we've talked about and heard good things about, because they will be needed right away. Right away, meaning after the Austin Peay game. There's no risk here of anything going wrong for them. But next week, Tennessee goes to the Swamp. And then beyond that, the schedule will get continuously tougher through SEC play. So assuming Keenan Pili is out for several weeks for at least a few SEC games, then these young players will be tested. But Tennessee, I believe, is in a better position than it would have been if it dealt with this a year ago, definitely 2 years ago.
That leads us to Josh's column on offthehooksports.com. Be sure and check it out. Josh's appearance today brought to you by Herald Group Security Solutions, and I'll tell you more about them momentarily. But 5 goals for the Vols to focus on for Austin Peay. They're going to win the game, but you can get better in these games. It's the closest thing you have. Like the NFL has a bye week, and you mentioned right up towards the top, address the linebacker situation now with Pili, and that makes natural sense. How do you think they'll address that? Who plays the mic? Who does Beasley slide back outside? How do you think they address it?
Well, I think the 2 starters will be Beasley and Herring, and then we'll see a lot of Arian Carter. And I think this game is a chance to see which players the coaches believe they can really rotate in and count on when the games matter. It's easy to rotate players against Virginia and to rotate players against Austin Peay because nothing can go wrong in terms of the outcome. Mistakes actually will be made, but then you can learn, okay, who's ready, who's not. But this game will be about getting Elijah Herring more opportunity out there. I'll be curious to see how much Aaron Beasley plays because he is so important to the defense. Now you're already down a man. You don't want to risk injury. And I view this kind of as a scrimmage / preseason game if you want to make an NFL comparison. Mike Tomlin recently was asked about playing guys in preseason games versus resting them. And his opinion was, well, if you're going to go box, you need to spar. So there's a chance to get Aaron Beasley some reps, but he's played a lot. So you can play him and then get him off the field and get more time for players like Elijah Herring and Arion Carter, who are the next two guys up, and Caleb Perry should be considered in this conversation. Jeremiah Thielander is another freshman they like. We always ask, how much do you trust freshmen? We might find out here in the next 2 weeks. But I think we see a lot of Herring and Arion Carter early to go along with the other guys.
Hey, before we get to your next one, can we clarify something real quick? Because this came up on the message board. Was Pili injured in practice? Didn't notice anything Saturday, Charles says.
No, he was injured in the game, but they didn't realize it until later on. So he played through the injury, not necessarily catching that anything was wrong. And that happens sometimes, but that was my understanding with Keenan Pili. The injury occurred during the game. They discovered it later.
Yeah, and what I wanted to get to, Polynesians are tough SOBs. So he may have injured it on the first play. I mean, really, and I'm just as a group of people, they take so much pride in football. Yeah, it was my understanding it happened during the game. So I just want to clarify that for our message board. Caleb?
Josh, moving on to different rotations. You talked about setting the offensive line as a goal in the game on Saturday. You mentioned left guard and right tackle as areas they're looking at. I agree with you about left guard. I want to know if left tackle may be a bigger question than right tackle, only because as good as John Campbell Jr. is in terms of raw talent, he still makes a lot of mental lapses in the game, whereas Jeremiah Crawford, I don't know if I've ever seen a mistake from Jeremiah Crawford since he's been at Tennessee, honestly. So is it possible left tackle could be a little more open than right tackle?
Well, that hasn't been suggested to me, so the coaches may be looking at that, and because their goal is to get the best five. We hear that all the time, right? But we know who the starting center is when he's available. That's Cooper Mays. We know who the right guard is. That's Javonte Sprague. And so you really have three other positions to figure out, and you have, I guess you have three tackles for two spots that the coaches have trusted at different times. Crawford, Mincy, I should say four. Crawford, Mincy, Campbell, and then Dane Davis, who's also been an interior option with Cooper's absence. So that's probably more the focus right now or for this week. So that has not been suggested to me, but perhaps that's something they look at as guys play in different positions. And Mincy has worked, we know, at left tackle. Back in August, the word was more at left tackle than right tackle, where Jeremiah Crawford was or has been.
Before we move on to a guy that everybody will always want to talk about, and of course that is Nico. Everybody has to bet a mortgage payment whether or not Cooper Mays will play against Florida. Caleb, you go first.
No, he won't play.
Josh.
Whose mortgage payment am I betting?
Your mortgage payment.
I've been very skeptical. I know Josh Heupel is talking optimistically there. So I'll still say no. I need more proof from behind the scenes that he's going to be ready to go against Florida, as opposed to optimistically looking ahead to what he will be able to do.
I will say no. I'm about 60-40, though, so I don't feel 100%, so I would not make the bet. You got make time for Nico. What are you doing? Trying to just stir up the fans and start a quarterback controversy? I mean, good gravy. Vol Twitter was going insane for Nico in the first quarter of the Virginia game. You're starting trouble. You're like the Paul Feinbaum of Knoxville radio.
Similar build, I must admit, but here's the deal. Yeah, Austin Peay probably not going to be a very good matchup. Looking at Tennessee, I think the Vols will probably take a lead early, and I think they'll build that pretty quickly. And then I think it'll be time to get Joe and several starters out of there to get ready for Florida. And it's officially been addressed by Josh Heupel, I guess, last night on Vol Call, saying, no, there's no plan to redshirt Nico. That's been a common question to us on my radio show, and I'm sure you guys have been asked. We may have talked about it. At no point were they thinking we need to redshirt Nico. They've been thinking we need to get Nico ready. He's the number 2 guy. If he needs a redshirt for a 5th season, something has gone very wrong with Nico's potential and development. Could be because of injury, could be performance, could be a number of reasons. But nobody, Josh Heupel, Joey Halsley, I don't know if Joey Halsley plans to be here in 5 years to coach Nico. So they want to, they want to coach him now and get him ready. And the plan is for Joe to continue to have success. But that might not pan out over the course of the rest of the season. Or, of course, there's the concern for injury. They have 2 scholarship quarterbacks. So Nico's played a little bit against Virginia, and that's it. He needs to play a lot. Last year, Joe Milton entered the game in the second quarter against UT Martin, and there's a chance Nico could do the same this weekend.
Here's the rub, guys, is that, okay, Cooper's not going to play this week. So you put, of course, Ollie Lane in. So let's say you're up 35-0 at halftime. You want to put some Nico in to see what he can do, but suddenly he's playing against what would have been your third string center just about a month ago. I mean, that's the rub. And the last thing you would want, again, it's Austin Peay. Let me stop myself. The last thing you would want is some pressure in the middle and get him hurt.
Yeah, this isn't the third string center against Florida's 400-pound defensive tackle. That's not what we're discussing here.
I felt stupid in the middle of that statement.
Yeah, they should be able to get away with 4 offensive linemen and be able to protect against Austin Peay, with all due respect.
With all due respect, whenever you say that, you're just disrespecting somebody. With all due respect, you couldn't create a pass rush if Tennessee had 2 offensive.
With all due respect does not necessarily mean with a lot of due respect. It's just 100% of what is due in this case.
With all due respect, you put on some weight. Caleb, what's
you gotta love? We do have to love that we're not covering a team coached by Nick Saban, because he'd be so mad at us in this press conference today. He would say that we're responsible for his team not getting focused to play Austin Peay, and they're such a threat. And
the tin horn game.
Yes, right. They run through our A like S through a tin horn.
Yeah, I think Travis says no one can throw like Gaston, no one can run like Gaston. Yeah, I think you'll see more Gaston than you will Nico, but we shall see. And so your final topic up there was about the youngins. Can you tell us about that? Why that's a goal?
Empty the bench, play them all, and get an idea. Like the linebacker position, I'm sure they already plan to play these young guys. It's just that one's going to be playing more quickly than expected, and then on to the next one. But David Hobbs is a guy that they like a lot as a freshman defensive lineman. And Young doesn't have to be freshman. That's just a lot of what we're going to talk about. But some second-year guys, like at wide receiver, we should see Caleb Webb and Chaz Nimrod get some opportunities, along with Laycock, who's a freshman wide receiver that they like a lot in terms of his potential. So really every position group, the secondary, we've heard so much about Ricky Gibson, Jordan Matthews, John Slaughter, play those guys. So by the third quarter, we should be seeing a lot of the 2022 and 2023 class members out there playing. The offensive line, by the way, when we talk about that and trying to figure out who are your guys setting your offensive line, who are the guys next year? So they're hoping to not have too many injuries to where they really run into a depth issue this year, but they have a bunch of seniors they have to replace for next year's offensive line. And I know there will be the transfer portal, but some of these young linemen that they brought in last year and this year should get a lot of run against Austin Peay as well.
Yep. And it is time to look back in time. Things going so well for Tennessee, and then there's $8 haircut. What the H?
What the? What was he thinking?
Release the hounds.
The Dave Hooker Show.
Keep cool.
A presentation of offthehooksports.com.
All right, Josh, what did you think about Butch Jones referring to there's a negative fan base out there? Subtle shot at Tennessee after he had his little cry fest on the sideline. And wow, what's wrong with that dude?
Yeah, probably a number of things at this point. He's not winning a lot. He's made a lot of money, and that should, I think, help a lot of people in stressful work environments feel a little bit better, but I'm not sure that it is. There is a bit of a Spider-Man meme here, because he's not wrong in that the Tennessee fan base continues to follow and watch and make fun of, in this case, what's going on with Butch Jones. He also is well aware that that is happening on social media. So it's kind of like the two sides can't quit each other. But the problem for Butch Jones is he is losing a lot. And I'll be honest, I thought he would go there and do well enough, because coaches have gone to Arkansas State, had a lot of success, and then jumped to or back to a Power 5 position. That just has not worked out. That was an embarrassing performance. I know it's Oklahoma, but 73-0. It goes without saying how bad that is. So yeah, but neither side can quit each other. Message boards, Twitter, threads are always filled with Butch Jones chatter with what's going on.
Travis says, I welcome every single one of Butch's failures. He can go kick rocks. Caleb knows history.
He's not snapping and clearing. I think it is safe to say that.
Remember, what was the saying? It was like a pound the rock saying that he had at Tennessee. Brick by brick. Well, he had the same thing. If you remember at Cincinnati, it was pull the rope. So does he have a saying at Arkansas State at this point?
Get back up and try again.
Get back up and try again. Just give it your best.
Look, guys, the only thing that Tennessee's missing with Butch Jones this year, Josh, as you know, they wouldn't have to play their backups against Austin Peay because the backups could just get the mental reps. You know,
leadership reps.
Leadership rep. That's right. Leadership rep.
Mm-hmm.
But if you don't get it, doesn't matter if you don't get an actual rep, you still get a leadership rep by not playing.
What about the guy that put his arm around him? Is that guy a champion of life as he's on the sidelines getting beat 73-0?
Well, that player, I don't know anything about him specifically, but I could imagine that if he were to fall on a helmet, he would be the kind that it would not keep from being able to pick himself back up and succeeding into the future.
Do we want to play this? Sorry, Josh. Do we want to play this clip real quick? Because this is pretty fantastic. Here, let's pull this up here. There's the butcher with the $8 haircut that might just be $6 because he's losing some of it. If you're on an audio platform, we're looking at this press conference. So go ahead and fire this off.
Coach, if you look at social media or message boards, obviously a lot of negativity following the loss. Is that something you talk about with your team, or you just kind of just keep all of it?
I don't check that at all. I mean, I would hope there would be people that would be upset. I mean, that means they have passionate, but also I know that a lot of that is from another fan base. So I don't pay much attention to that.
That's the only part that matters.
Yes, we would like to thank Aquaman for providing that audio.
I don't pay much attention to that, but it's from another fan base, which means you pay attention to it.
Right, Josh. How much we got cliche by cliche and tier by tier on the message board. Josh, how much do you think of his downfall at Tennessee was because he cared what everybody thought too much? I mean, who cares? We've seen Sean Payton talk about Russell Wilson. You're not trying to be a politician. Just go out there and play or win football games.
Yeah, I think Butch Jones changed during his time at Tennessee. I think he got to Tennessee when it was the honeymoon phase and did well in recruiting, and a lot of people bought in, and it really did back up the brick by brick slogan. Fans were all in on that for the first couple of years, but at some point the results had to follow, and they didn't get to where fans expected, where Butch Jones thought they would. They fell short of the big picture goals of winning the East and winning SEC titles and all that. And the pressure started to build, and I think it really affected Butch Jones. Then there are other layers, managing big-time players that you were recruiting to Tennessee. There's a skill to that. The strength coach changed. That was mishandled. But Butch Jones was too thin-skinned at Tennessee and worried about things that he shouldn't have been worrying about. He should have been spending more time on his job and worrying less about what was being said on the outside. The outside noise affected him at Tennessee, and it probably still is to this point. There's not as much coverage, of course, at Arkansas State as there is at Tennessee, but the results have been even worse, and that's affecting him too.
It is amazing to me how you would allow yourself to care about stuff. And I don't typically make fun of people when they're down, but he was a sociopath that threatened the media behind closed doors to kind of control the narrative, as somebody referenced on the message board. And that's fact. I mean, you had guys that got out of the media business partly because of that. Let me ask you guys, and Caleb knows history like nobody's business when it comes to Tennessee. He's the worst coach in Tennessee football other than blank.
I think Derek Dooley's the worst.
Oh, you think Dooley's worse than the Butcher?
Yeah, Butch just won so much more than Derek Dooley.
Yeah.
Like, give me one good thing Derek Dooley did. Nothing. He lost the streak against Kentucky. He thought that in 2012 there was no need to sign an offensive lineman as a coach in the SEC.
That's fair.
No, I think Derek Dooley's the worst. And by the way, still defends that decision. In hindsight, Derek Dooley has still said, yeah, but people forget that we had this great offensive line that was coming back. And my response would be, did you forget that they don't stay forever, that they go pro? So, yeah, I think Derek Dooley's the worst. His record is abysmal. I thought he was a total fraud when he was the head coach, and he left Tennessee in an awful position.
Yeah, it's pretty good.
He because he had a Southern accent, he acted like he was one of the people, when the truth is that the way he really acted is like he was above everybody else. Not true at all.
I'm actually gonna push back a little bit on Josh on this.
Oh, Caleb loves Derek Dooley.
No, I do not love Derek Dooley. You are right. Derek Dooley he's the most condescending coach ever in the media. I've never seen a more condescending head coach in interviews in the media. I mean, he always talked like he was smarter than you, and it was annoying because he wasn't showing. But I do think Derek Dooley, the one thing I give him that I don't give Butch Jones, Derek Dooley took over Tennessee in a much worse situation than Butch Jones took over Tennessee. I mean, it's not even comparable.
No, I don't agree with that at all.
You don't agree with that at all? The whole post-Kiffin NCAA investigation that Derek Dooley inherited in 2010?
Yeah, I don't think that affected them much at all. They still recruited just fine. I think the roster, remember when Butch Jones inherited the program at Tennessee as well, they were at that point a half decade removed from any kind of success. Derek Dooley inherited the program 2 years after they played in the SEC title. He also had more talent to work with. Neither inherited an ideal situation. I'm not saying that about either, but to say that it's not close, I think is crazy. That class that Lane left in terms of the early enrollees was it included Juwan James, it included Tyler Bray, who had NFL talent. I think Derek Dooley was awful for Tyler Bray because there was no leadership from the head coach, and Tyler at that time, as a 18-year-old coming in from high school, needed to mature. Derek Dooley was the worst coach for him. So I think there was a ton for Butch Jones to have to clean up. When he took over, the perception around Tennessee's program was really bad.
Here's part of the problem with that is the perception was bad. And I think that Butch Jones fell into that trap too, guys. I think he told a reporter afterwards when Tennessee struggled, and he was at Alabama at one point. He told a reporter, he said, I had you guys talking to the reporter at 9 wins. That's pretty good. And what was wrong with that? And now you're struggling. I think that was part of the problem. And Tennessee's fan base got caught up in that. Both you guys, Josh, if you want to jump in, and Caleb, I think Tennessee's fan base wondered if they could ever be a championship contending team. And Josh Heupel has remarkably changed that in just a couple of years.
Yeah, Heupel's changed it quickly. But remember when Butch signed that 14 class with all the in-state guys, I think the expectation at the time was, hey, we are on our way back and we'll be there pretty soon. And then the 15 class that included so many highly touted guys like Khalil McKenzie, that was stacking top 5 to top 10 classes in back-to-back years. And at that point, Josh Dobbs had taken over, and there was a belief that, okay, he's ready to take the next step. And I think fans still believe the program was close to a championship level. Heupel, I think, inherited the spot where it had the most people saying, man, can we really get back there? Because it had been more than a decade at that point since Tennessee had competed for an SEC title. And then Georgia's in the position that it's in. So I think with each coach, there was pretty quick buy-in. I mean, the craziest thing to me about the Derek Dooley era, and there was a long list of crazy things, but this is number one for me, is that remember Eric Berry had beef with Derek Dooley. And a lot of people sided with Derek Dooley over Eric Berry, who is a top 5 legend, in my opinion, in Tennessee football, at least in the modern history of Tennessee football. And at the time, because of the coach worship with Derek Dooley, a lot of people said, Eric's in the wrong here. And he was not. They were lying about Eric Berry. That was one of my... It was insane.
What was the beef?
Well, it had to do with Art Evans. And I'm not saying that Eric's opinion was totally on board with reality in terms of Art and his performance at Tennessee. But there was an issue with Art Evans and Derek Dooley, and Eric went public with it. And Tennessee, through a number of people, put out this flat-out lie that they had tried to get in touch with Eric, and he was non-communicative with them. It's like, there are a number of ways to get in touch with Eric Berry, who plays for the Kansas City Chiefs. The media could get in touch with him, but they just flat-out lied, and that all came from Derek Dooley. Remember, there was the issue with a number of former players, and he had I think you asked one of the questions of the follow-up Dave, where Derek Dooley was talking about former players having an issue coming to the facility or getting to practice. And he had this policy, you had to call ahead and you had to get on a list. And he was like, I call my brother. How difficult is it? Boom. I was like, well, hey, moron, what if nobody answers? What if nobody calls back? So it was an embarrassing ride for 3 years. And fans pretty quickly after that figured out, wait a minute, that Kentucky loss caused a lot of people to say, yeah, I don't know. And when all the assistant coaches decided to jump ship and get away, that was another sign that, this probably didn't have too much time. But in that first year and a half, it was at times shameful, the amount of backing that Dooley had versus people that had actually done good things for Tennessee.
Yeah, I got lambasted for that. And the reason I asked that question, which led to that, was because 5 players called me the day before and said they couldn't get into practice. And I know this is a week to celebrate Condridge Holloway, but he was put in charge of handling dozens of phone calls from former players that want to go to practice. He didn't have time for that.
Yeah, it was stupid by Derek Dooley. He didn't know what he was doing, and he was trying to implement something that was unnecessary, and he had it poorly organized in the process. So it was one of the many things he worried about. Like when we talk about Butch Jones worrying about things that didn't matter, and he did, and that was one of his issues. I mean, the stories of Derek Dooley, how much he was concerned about his office and the view of it when they were redoing some of the facility stuff there. He was worried about things that he shouldn't care about at all. But that, again, is why he had the embarrassing results that he did.
Yeah, and the bottom line is, I know you guys debate a little bit who took over the tougher job. At the very top, there was not a Donde Plowman. So at the very top, there was not.
Yeah, they didn't have the right leadership in place for the head coaches who were. I mean, Derek Dooley was definitely in over his head. He had just gone 4-8 at Louisiana Tech, and all of a sudden he's at the head coach at Tennessee. So to Caleb's point about inheriting the position that he did, Derek Dooley was so poorly equipped to take on that challenge. Butch Jones at least had some kind of idea of what it was going to take. He couldn't get there. His plan wasn't all that bad. He recruited at a high level, and while we mock some of the things that he said early on, again, a lot of people bought into it. If he had the results that he hoped to have and fans hope to have, then all that stuff is celebrated today. But he became more frustrating for fans. The press conferences became a turnoff. He, like the fell in a helmet thing, that goes into one of the topics today, I believe, just flat out lying at his press conference. And everybody knew that it was a lie, but he did it because of who knows what kind of concept he had in his mind. And I've heard that the players behind the scenes even made fun of him. Like, come on, that's the best you could come up with. So, it's just you could do a book on just the press conference and public image of the head coaches from Kiffin's kind of a separate story. That'd be like the forward maybe to the book. But then you have the Dooley, who remember at his opening press conference, Dave, you and I looked at each other like, this isn't going to work out, right? I think we just maybe disagreed on how long it would take for it to not work out.
We actually said
he said you're not going to, because Kiffin had all these one-liners and all this media attention, and Dooley said you're not going to get that from me. And then he goes and does a shower press conference and a "Where's Rommel" line and talking about bamboo. And then the Butch era speaks for itself, and then Jeremy Pruitt, who never could figure out how to put the gator on his head. So it's been an amazing run that now has Tennessee in the place where it should have been all along, with a guy who knows what he's doing, and Josh Heupel. I don't know if he's going to win championships, but he has a much better understanding of what his job is, both in coaching, both in handling players, working with administration, which is also in a better position, like you mentioned with Donde and Danny White. And then I think Heupel is continuing to grow in terms of public media relations. I think he's more comfortable than that in that role than he was 2 years ago. So that would be an example of him continuing to develop. He's still pretty new into his role as a head coach. This is year 6 for him, right? So it's just, if you compare those eras, when we talk about night and day, it's Earth to Mars when we talk about Josh Heupel compared to Tennessee's previous head coaches.
Josh Pruitt at least scouted talent well. I will say that. Pruitt did leave. Pruitt at least scouted talent well.
Yeah, the 2019 class was well evaluated. It was just poorly implemented.
Right.
If you take the one skill out of all 3 of them, Pruitt's talent evaluation was the best of any skill.
Besides quarterback. He screwed up quarterback evaluating.
No, agree with that. But if you had to take one skill between the 3 of them, is that the best skill that all 3 possess?
Pruitt's talent evaluation.
Yes.
Yeah. Because he knew the other guys that he had to go get, and some of them he just missed out on to the schools that Tennessee is competing against now. But yeah, I think across the board, besides quarterback, Pruitt's talent evaluation, not perfect, nobody is, but I think it was really good.
Josh, can I
Pruitt did get Hendon Hooker, though, to be fair, with quarterback.
Yeah, I mean, he left some parting gifts, and I'm not kidding. Hooker was one. Byron Young coming in as a JUCO transfer that they found was really good, and a few others too. But yeah, Hooker and Byron Young were nice gifts that were left to the new coaching staff.
Josh, great job on the column as always. We greatly appreciate it. Tennessee does have some goals, so people can check that out on offthehooksports.com. There are goals out there other than just beating Austin Peay. What are you smiling at, Josh, before I let you out?
Rocky Top Tom says, no, the best quality was Jones was the best BSer. That's pretty good too. It's a skill.
Pretty good on. Thanks for cleaning that up too.
Butch did not understand. I will say this one thing that every other coach I think understood that Butch didn't understand. He didn't realize that people covering him are not supposed to be mouthpieces for the program. That I remember him saying in the meltdown with the helmet.
But you're correct. You are correct for sure. He is far from the only coach that thinks that, though.
Okay.
He's not the only Tennessee coach from the last 10 years that had that same opinion.
Poor Josh has 3 kids under the age of 5, and he's got a show to do. But I got to ask one quick question. My favorite stupidity moment from that whole period was the locker room door. I'm talking about the whole decade.
Opportunity, Dave. Where is it?
It says opportunity, and it's supposed to be now and here, but they run the words together. I don't know if you can find a picture of that, Caleb, but it's opportunity, and it reads like opportunity is nowhere. So you step into that locker room, and there is no opportunity anywhere to be found. Yeah,
well, remember that was also, I believe, the same season, but followed up by the Orange Dog. Remember the Orange Dog they brought out as a motivational piece, and this is 2011. So this is just an unforgettable time in Tennessee football history. I have a story to go with that as well. 2011, they have Vanderbilt and Kentucky to close out the regular season. They're 4-6. They need to go 2-0 in the final 2 games. They beat Vanderbilt, remember, in the overtime interception, and there's this big celebration. So I'm in the locker room post game, or the media room, and I ask a player how big the win is, and he says, "Oh, it's huge. We're bowl eligible now." And I said, "Well, you got to beat Kentucky next week to be bowl eligible." And he was like, "Oh yeah." And I thought, that's not a good sign for where the mindset is here. And they went out there and just played one of the most embarrassing games that Tennessee fans have ever watched, with that loss against Kentucky with a wide receiver playing quarterback. So the Orange Dog gave them the inspiration for that 1 win, but he forgot to remind them they needed 2 wins.
Yeah,
Travis saying, I do wish Dave and Caleb wore an oranger shade of glasses. I will go ahead and say, Josh, it didn't go this far. I think that Josh Heupel wins a national title at Tennessee. And that's, Josh, you know me. I wouldn't say that if I didn't believe it, would I? I mean, you've known me for what, 20 years?
Yeah, I mean, to Travis's point, my understanding is that you pray every night before bed that they don't. So for you to make that kind of claim is
pray that they don't.
I'm kidding. No, that's a very bold claim because it's so difficult. But can it happen? Absolutely. I think Josh Heupel will have them in a position to have a legitimate shot at a title. It's so difficult, but there's going to be a 12-team playoff. They're going to be in it a bunch with Josh Heupel, and they'll be one of those teams that can actually win it. Not one of those teams that gets there and they're about to get beat down when they play one of the high-level teams. I think in the next 2 or 3 years, Tennessee will have a shot at a national title.
Yep. Great stuff, Josh. We took too long, man. I apologize. Have a blessed day. Best to you and those little ones. And we certainly appreciate it.
Yep. It's fun. Thanks, guys.
Thank you, sir.
Have a good one, Josh.
Yeah, I mean, I do believe he wins a national title at some point at Tennessee. And somebody said that I'm a PAL. I'm sorry. Somebody knows I'm from PAL. That's weird. Yeah, I got my PhD, PAL High Diploma, after 3 years of PMS, PAL Middle School. But Dave's a Michigan fan. No, I hate the Big Ten. No, I think that Josh Heupel wins a national title at Tennessee.
Yeah, and I think, and I'll say this with Josh and with Josh Heupel. I don't mind coaches be an adversarial with the media as long as they understand what our job is versus what their job is. Because, like, that's my problem with Nick Saban, is he expects Alabama to be his mouthpiece and do him favors to cover his team. I don't think he knows that's what their job is or expects that to be their job. He just knows he can get away with it. I'll give you, Dave, you covered Fulmer for years. I've been very critical of Fulmer in the past, but I feel like Fulmer understood that the media's job was different from his job, didn't he?
Yeah, by the way, just got a text from him. He'll be on our Celebrate 98 series next week. So, we're looking forward to that. Yes, I think he understood my job. I think that, and I've said this before publicly, I think the athletic director at the time, Mike Hamilton, was playing both sides, and that maybe made him misunderstand my job. Does that make sense?
Right.
I think he was getting a different message than I was getting. And I don't think he ever understood John Adams' job, who joins us every Tuesday. I don't think he, to the end of time, will ever understand what John Adams brought to the table. Ever. I don't
right
think, yes, I don't think that will ever happen. So yes and no. I kind of answered it both ways. Josh made a reference to coaches lying. Do we care if coaches lie? I want to get into that because one of the most prominent SEC coaches caught in a lie, and I think Josh Heupel fibbed a little bit recently. So do you care if your coaches lie as long as they win? 90 seconds with Caleb Calhoun. I'm Dave Hooker. Stay tuned.
Candace, I was really heavy into the drug culture. I was selling drugs. I was just constantly in pain. I was missing like a good support system in my life. Candace has given me everything that I need in order to successfully have a wonderful recovery, in order to have a life that I didn't even know was possible. And it's not just about me anymore, and I love that. I absolutely love it.
You can take your life back. Call Cadis today.
With all that sun, sand, and salt water, the beach is a very relaxing place. Unless you wear contacts. Ow! Open your eyes to the best the beach has to offer with LASIK vision correction from Campbell Cunningham Laser Center.
Sports Treasures in North Knoxville is one of the South's largest sports cards and memorabilia dealers, featuring over 10 million sports cards from vintage to modern. Sports Treasures carries a full line of hobby boxes, singles, autographed memorabilia, Tennessee Vol collectibles, fan cave decorations, and so much more. See a museum full of collectibles at Sports Treasures, 4819 North Broadway in Fountain City, and Sports Treasures on Facebook. Sports Treasures, where the real sports fan goes to shop.
You're listening to The Dave Hooker Show, a presentation of OffTheHookSports.com.
The internet is full of pictures of each and every one of you.
Available on YouTube, Apple, Spotify, and the Off the Hook Sports app. Download now for free.
Is there nothing you people can't do?
Also available on OffTheHookSports.com.
I got to take a quick second, if you don't mind, because we got a lot of people on board right now. So if you're on board or one of the originals, and I can remember when we had 6 or 8 people on, and it's grown. And a couple of things. First of all, you're greatly appreciated. And I appreciate it when you support our advertisers, because that's why we're here. And but just a couple of things real quick as we go into football season number 2. Just want to say thank you so much for all that helped us got things started, and including Amanda, who moved on to other things, and Caleb Giroux, who is awesome, and Caleb Calhoun, who is just fantastic. So here I am sitting here after a year launch, and we're going to have Philip Fulmer on our Celebrate 98 series. We're going to have T. Martin on Friday on our Celebrate 98 series, which is awesome. Fred White lining a lot of that up. And we topped a big mark in terms of views. We're talking 6 digits in the past 28 days on our YouTube channel. And I've got a bleep ton of books that are about to be delivered to my home, the Celebrate 98 book that I'll be able to get to you. It's on Amazon right now, but quite frankly, they take a huge cut. And if you'd like an autographed version, we're going to have a shop set up with more things. So I just want to say thanks to all those that are part of it, specifically Caleb Calhoun. None of this would be possible if not for you and the work you put in on a day-to-day basis. So kind of had one of those tingly feel-good moments there during the break, and I thought I'd share that with the people that are on board. We can't thank you enough, and Caleb, I can't thank you enough as well.
Thank you, appreciate it, Dave. I'm not real good with the tingly mushy stuff. I'll tell you that. But I do appreciate
wait till you get older. I tear up on stupid movies. I watched the worst movie, The Flash, last night, and there was a point that I teared up. And you can imagine I've been an emotional wreck with my son moving out, going up to UMass. So I was glad to see an SEC team beat the heck out of his Minutemen. That proves that he should have stayed in the South. But yeah, I mean, if we talk long enough about the success we're having right now, I could probably tear up right now. You could get me to tear up right now.
Okay, Dave, I'm sorry. I have to say the joke, but hookers probably love Minutemen.
I've been on this earth for about 49 plus years, and that may be the best joke about a hooker that I've ever seen. So let's get to right now. Do you care if your coaches lie? Let me ask you that on the message board. Do you care if it's best for your team? Do you even care that they lie, that they look into a camera? It's a morally wrong thing to do, right? I think Josh Heupel fibbed a little bit when he said Cooper Mays would be back in a couple of weeks. And I think there are situations in which I've been lied to and knew that. The one that sticks in my craw the most still to this day is when I knew the black jerseys were being created in 2009. And we asked the athletic director at the time, we asked the head coach, Lane Kiffin, and they said, no, I got no problem with no comment, but I got a problem with lying. When it comes to injuries, I think that you just say no comment, no comment, no comment. I'm not going to say anything. You don't provide the couple of weeks or anything like that. I'm nitpicking a little with the Josh Heupel thing, because if there's ever a gray area, it is injuries. But Caleb, now we have one Brian Kelly who got caught up in a little bit of a lie. So give me some background as we bring him up on the screen. Be sure and hit that like and subscribe button. As I remind you, portions of the program are brought to you by Zen Sports, including this portion. So let me ask you, what did Brian Kelly do? Why is he suddenly a liar?
Brian Kelly was on his radio show. There were rumors that he said, we're going to beat the heck out of Florida State. And he said, that's not something I would say. Well, then this 8-second clip was discovered. And it's only 8 seconds, so I'll just play it real quick.
Okay, shoot it.
And that's not...
Sorry?
Go. Yeah, go right ahead.
Okay.
And that's not a disclaimer of any kind. We're going to go beat the heck out of Florida State. But
yeah, it's like literally an audio of him saying exactly what he said he didn't say.
Yeah, and to me, that is not a great sign of your character. But here's a simple fact, and you might not want to hear this, but 90 to 95% of the guys that get to this level of college football are probably not 100% honest all the time. Well, they're not 100% honest all the time. So you kind of take that as it comes. I think the question you have, and listen, Josh Heupel, I'm sure, was shocked by the amount of coverage when he came in at Tennessee. I mean, that he goes from probably 5 reporters to 50 from UCF to Tennessee on an average press conference.
But his time at Oklahoma had to prepare him for that, right?
That's fair. Yeah, good point. But you're suddenly the guy that's answering all the questions. And Brian Kelly should be more adept at this. Brian Kelly should be more aware that everything is on the record nowadays. And I'm surprised he got caught up in that. Now, does that mean he won't win a championship at LSU or wasn't a great hire? Absolutely not. It doesn't mean that. But, to get caught in a lie is not the best thing. And people will point to that if he struggles. If he wins 2 championships, 3 championships, nobody's going to point back to September of 2023 and say, remember that time he lied. So ultimately, winning cures all, right?
It does. Brian Kelly, and I've said for a couple of years I believe in LSU under Brian Kelly because I believe in Brian Kelly as a coach, and I think LSU is just an amazing job to have, even though they lost last week. Brian Kelly, though, is an awkward dude and has been caught in some embarrassing moments since he's been at LSU. I mean, there was the whole "me and my family" thing he said. Yes. Remember that 2 years ago? The dancing with the recruit that ended up going to Alabama. And then there's this. And now, again, I'm being unfair because, look, if Butch Jones does this, I'm laughing at him. He looks like a clown if he does it. But Brian Kelly's taken Notre Dame to 2 college football playoff appearances and a national title in an era where it's impossible to win at Notre Dame.
Right.
And so it is different when Brian Kelly does it because you've seen what he's proven he can do on the field as a coach.
Same thing to a smaller extent. This was not a flat out lie, but couple of weeks means 2 weeks. It doesn't mean a few weeks with the Cooper Mays situation. And it's a player who you listen, Josh Heupel's insecure. Most great coaches are. He didn't want to go out there against Virginia and something crazy happened. I'm sure he knew that Tennessee was much better than Virginia, but he didn't want something crazy to happen where they get some sort of edge because Ollie Lane doesn't play as well as they thought because Cooper Mays can't play. Every coach is insecure that this stuff could get out, and in the end, that could cost you a football game. So that's why they wanted to keep that under wraps. That's why you'll hear the talking point will be that that Cooper Mays is going to play against Florida. I mean, that will be the talking point. Whether or not he does is a whole nother issue. So you got to be careful in choosing your words. To me, that's way different than Brian Kelly just being caught in a flat out lie that has nothing to do with injury. To some extent, when you deal with injuries, that's gamesmanship. If you want to say strictly by the letter of the law and what the good Lord said, yeah, in some cases, that's a lie. But I understand the gamesmanship. Your thoughts on that? First, want to remind you, Zen Sports is the new sports book in Tennessee, revolutionizing the way you earn sports betting rewards. That means no more deposit bonuses that turn into deposit nightmares on Zen Sports. What you see is what you get with their cash rewards program. You get a lot of cash for a welcome bonus. Earn an unlimited 5% cash back on your betting volume for your first 15 days when you sign up with the promo code HOOK. That's HOOKED. That's right. Unlimited 5% cash back. Keep betting, keep earning with up to 3% cash back on your betting volume every month after that. Refer friends to earn a percentage of their betting volume as cash rewards too. Zen Sports is bringing the cash back to Tennessee. So if you bet big on sports, you'll want to be betting on Zen Sports. Zen Sports betting just got better. Here's the thing, Caleb. If you're going to lie publicly, it makes it a lot harder for when one of your players gets in trouble. I've always said this. And I know it sounds weird. You might lie to the cops. You might lie to this guy, that guy, that guy. But when your head coach brings you into that office, the most important moment of your football career is being 100% honest. So do you lose any of that credibility if you're Brian Kelly and you got caught in a lie and you're one of those players and you get called in after a domestic assault issue or after a driving issue like at Georgia? Do you lose some of that credibility? Just look him in the eye and say, you have one opportunity to tell me the truth, because that's the way those meetings shake out.
It depends on
you lose some credibility.
I think you do, but it also somewhat depends on how the lie comes, or if it's a lie or not telling the truth. For instance, I think Josh Heupel has a lot of credibility with his players because he did everything he could to not rat out Jeremy Banks last year. He didn't lie, but
That is a great point. That is a fantastic point. Go ahead, finish that.
Yeah, he did everything he could. He was forced into a question. Now, he wasn't going to lie to the media and say there wasn't a fight, because there was, but he wasn't going to tell them that there was. So he just said something, physical game, stuff happened and moved on. And I think even though that's not the answer the media wants, and even though that non-answer gives away the answer, I think that gives him so much credibility with his players of, I'm going to cover for you. I'm not going to lie for you, but I am going to cover for you wherever I can.
No, and let's face it. What does it help to throw Jeremy Banks under the bus again with the South Carolina issue? It makes it look like you're making excuses, right? Mm-hmm. And it also hurts him publicly when in reality, an NFL scouts. I mean, where was Jeremy Banks drafted?
He wasn't drafted.
Exactly right. And you want to know why? It's because those NFL scouts came to them and said, "Can you tell me what really happened?" And if he was a tweener, if he's going in the 6th, 7th round, you're not taking him because of what you heard from Tennessee's coaching staff. And that's the way you should handle it. So I don't understand why it would help to besmirch him in public at all. I thought he handled that incredibly well. You don't have to come out. Listen, there's fights all the time. There's misunderstandings. Those things happen. The problem was that Tennessee didn't handle it well. And I'm talking about their players. Other than that, their leadership has been stupendous in-house, but they didn't handle it well there. Great point with the Jeremy Banks thing. I thought that was handled really well by Josh Heupel. Best it could have been.
Exactly. As opposed to, remember, funny we brought him up, but I will say Josh Ward may be moving me a little bit. Remember Derek Dooley throwing Malik Jackson under the bus? You may have been covering ESPN by this point.
Yeah, I don't remember that.
Malik Jackson was out for a practice one Tuesday. He was apparently throwing up, and something was happening, and he needed to take practice off. And Dooley literally went to the media and said his tummy was hurt. You can tell him he needed his mama out here, or his mama wasn't here. Yeah, I mean, just like, how do you keep your team when you do that? How do you keep your team when you publicly embarrass a player like that?
You don't. I mean, that's the first step towards the end, or that's one of these steps towards the end. It
is. And he said it to the media publicly. He said his tummy was hurt and his mommy wasn't there. Direct quote. And very similar to, guys, Justin Fuente's probably never going to get another coaching job again. And if he does, he'll lose the team in a heartbeat, because
he destroyed Hooker's reputation.
He did. He lied on him.
He didn't like to play in the cold.
Yes, and Hooker had a bad case of COVID, like one of the worst cases, like was one of those that was actually negatively affected by it. And Fuente goes out and said Hooker didn't want to play in the cold. He lost the whole team at that point. Everybody on Virginia Tech knew he was lying. Every fan of Virginia Tech knew he was lying. And you can't throw your players under the bus. Lie or truth. That's the one time. So I guess what I'm getting at is the one time lying is okay is if you're trying to protect a player, but I still think the right moves to do what Heupel did was just to cover for them, but just don't blatantly lie.
Agreed. All right, let's get to our picks now, and they're brought to you in part by Campbell, Cunningham, Taylor, and Hahn. Enjoy life better when you see better. Local vision service for LASIK, cataract surgery, and regular eye exams. It's right down there below, and you can click on it. It is ccteyes.com. Again, support our advertisers. We greatly appreciate that, and our sponsors are so important to what we do. So we got the SEC slate. Do you want a music bed, or do you want something for this? We need or are you ready to get rolling here? Let's just go ahead and roll.
Caleb's Casino. That's what we're calling it, guys.
Caleb's Casino.
And our three best bets of the week, we're going to call them the Hooker Special. So
the Hooker Special. I like that. All right, here we go. So what do we
got?
All
right. So last week we went, just want to point this out, got back going. We went 11-6 last week. I did go 1-2 on the three best bets, but we're 12-9. We're making a profit for the year, Dave. So we're doing this right. All right. So first, Wake Forest. I got them covering the 10-point spread against Vanderbilt. Where are you at with that?
I'll roll with Wake covering the 10.
I'm on under 56 though.
I'm in the under as well because I think Vanderbilt will be able to control the ball somewhat.
All right, so wait, I need Tracy Morgan and the other guy.
Oh, the other guy. Man, that makes me feel old. So I'm gonna go with that's Hank Kingsley. So I agree with that. Caleb's making you money. Here we go.
All right. Ball State covers the 42-point spread against Georgia, or Georgia will not cover the 42-point spread against Ball State. I got Ball State plus 42.
That's crazy.
Tracy Morgan thinks that's crazy, and so do I. I got Georgia covering that number. Give me one reason you don't.
I don't believe in Mike Bobo. I'm calling him Mike Dodo, and Carson Beck is the quarterback. I'm seeing 42-7 with this one, so I'm going the under 52 as well.
Elias says this weekend is full of road favorites that I'm looking at, so I might just be hands off completely. Yeah. Oftentimes, a good time in gambling is knowing when to pass. Who's up next?
All right, Tulane, Ole Miss. This is the toughest one to bet, but I actually have Ole Miss is favored by 7.5. I'm taking Tulane on the points, not to win it outright, but on the points. I don't think Ole Miss wins by more than a touchdon. It's at
we
Tulane.
Only agree on Vandy so far, Tracy.
That's crazy.
No, I think Ole Miss covers that number. And I think there's motivation to recruit well in Louisiana, and Lane Kiffin knows that. So if he has an opportunity to pull away, you will. All right, what else you got?
Well, also I'm going under 67. I don't know where you're going. I think that number is way too high.
I will.
Hey now.
I'll agree with you on the over under.
All right, so Texas A&M is favored by 4 at Miami. I don't know if Miami's going to win outright, but I think that number's too high. I got Miami +4 playing at home against Texas A&M.
Hey now.
I agree with you there. By the way, Travis likes Tulane at home plus the points. So I agree with you on that one as well. What's up next?
An under 51 for Miami and Texas A&M. I don't think there's going to be a lot of scoring in this game. All right, here's the toughest one for me because this is a giant spread. But I got Arkansas covering the 38-point spread against Kent State. Kent State lost 56-6 last week to Central Florida.
Hey now.
The hey now you get because I'm stunned. The pick.
That's crazy.
Arkansas. I mean, they would have to. I don't see that offense producing. What, a 48? Because the 38th is the spread, but you'd have. I mean, you got to think Kent State's going to score something, right?
I'm going like 52-13, so I'm taking the over as well.
Eesh. Okay.
Yeah.
That's crazy.
I don't like either of those, but anyway, I like you.
All right, big one of the week. Alabama, Texas. I got Alabama covering 7-point spread. I think Alabama covers at home against Texas. 7.
Ooh. That's saucy. I didn't think that's the direction you were going to go. I purposefully didn't look at your column, which is on offthehooksports.com, so we could discuss it. I thought you would go in the other direction. That doesn't mean that
You suck.
that means
That's crazy.
okay. No way. I think. Go ahead.
You think Texas puts up a fight?
I think Texas puts up a fight. I've got the upset alert out on this one.
I've got Texas fans are calling for Arch Manning to start in a week. I've got everybody wants Arch Manning to start by Monday. That's going to happen. And I got the under in this one because I still don't believe in Jalen Milroe, but I don't believe in Texas's offense at all. So I got the under 54. I'm seeing like 24-10 Alabama.
Great point by Travis. I'd take Alabama plus 14, so a revenge game. Yeah, good point because they looked pretty bad last year. By the way, I'm terrible at picking games. Listen to Caleb more often. I'll tell you what I'm good at, what I'm not good at. I'm pretty good at reporting and I think hosting and some stuff, but I'm not great at picking games. All right, what do you got?
All right, so this one I'm mixed on, Dave, so I might actually lean on you. Missouri's a 3-touchdown favorite versus MTSU. I'm taking Missouri with the points, but I'll acknowledge I am not fully committed to it against MTSU.
Oh my gosh. I got a source at MTSU. Let me see how things are going there. I'm always picking against Missouri. By the way, okay. I'm going to pick with my heart. Listen to Caleb. And I'm going to pick with my heart. And let's keep track of these by the end of the year. What's next?
All right. So also over 48. I think that's too low. All right. So Mississippi State, 9-point favorite versus Arizona. I do think they're going to cover that just because it's in Starkville. And I'm taking the under 60.5. Quietly moving past Mike Leach, Zach Arnett has turned Mississippi State into a defensive team, and Arizona can play a little sloppy. I think in Starkville at night with the Cowbells, I think that's enough for Mississippi State to cover.
Agreed.
Hey now.
All right, and then the next one, Auburn Cal. Auburn is a 6.5-point favorite. Dave, I'm sorry, that's a night game at Cal, which means it's like 10:30 for Auburn time. I think they'll win. I think they're going to struggle a little bit though with Cal. I think Cal's going to put up a fight at night.
Hey now.
I can roll with that. And your best bets?
And all right, so best bets. Wake Forest -10 versus Vanderbilt. I'm pretty big on that one.
Hey now.
Okay.
Auburn Cal, not the spread, but the over. 54.5 is too low. Even though it'll be closer than 6.5, I think Hugh Freeze will put up. I think both teams will put up 30 points. In that
Agreed.
Game.
Hey now.
And here's my big one. Everybody's thinking Colorado's going to come back down to earth. And I'm not saying Colorado isn't being a little bit overhyped, but I think Vegas overreacted and gave them a 3-point line against Nebraska. They're playing Nebraska at home. They're too athletic on the outside. I think they cover the 3-point spread against Nebraska.
It'll be easier to defend because people know what to defend, but I think Colorado does play well, and I think they win that game. So that's a tough one, and Nebraska's horrible. So.
Yeah, I think Nebraska long-term is in a good situation with Matt Rule. I actually would I might even take Matt Rule over Deion Sanders long term as a head coach. But I think just right now, given the transfers Deion brought in, I mean, Nebraska's going to win the trenches, but they are not fast enough to hang with Colorado on the outside.
It's a Football Friday with Fred next week. You know that we love that. Next week, tomorrow, that is. A Football Friday with Fred every Friday. So the lineup is strong as we've got the Vol Report with Jacob Warren and Cooper Mays. That'll come up Sunday. So we'll look back on the Austin Peay game. Also, we got that Sunday show with Fred. Brought to you by our friends at Herald Group Security Solutions. And so we'll have that over the weekend. But it all starts a Football Friday with Fred, and that is brought to you by our friends at the Herald Group Security Solutions. And Super Drag says I'm stuck in the 90s with the John Boy and Billy soundboard.
Hey now.
Wow.
You suck, you jackass.
Have a fantastic day, evening, morning, whenever you're watching.
And happy opening day for NFL.
There we go. We're off and rolling. And coming up on our Celebrate 98 series, no soundboard for you, Super Track. But we will have T. Martin and Philip Fulmer. So looking forward to that. He's Caleb Calhoun. I'm Dave Hooker. This has been a presentation of Off the Hook Sports.